what happened was that, obviously, most of you know that the apartments down there at the south end, there was a serious fire that ended up destroying 10 units or 8 units. It took us 6 minutes to get there, and the initial attack was interior. There were some calls that came in saying, this building's burning, you're not doing anything. But because they couldn't see the guys inside. Because initially, we don't fight a fire by putting water on it. We fight a fire by putting water in it. Because you want to try to get to the base of the fire. So as soon as the first groups arrived, they sent 5 people in, 2 different attack teams. And they attacked the fire from the inside. When they realized that they weren't making any headway with it, and a pretty good indication of that is that they could feel the heat through all the way here. And as they were spraying water, before it could actually have an effect, it would vaporize. So it's time to pull back out, and then they were going to try to trench cut. And the thing about doing a trench cut, you cut from one top roof, from the top roof to the bottom. And it's a process that's used a lot in wildland firefighting. And what you're doing is you're creating a stop. So you're letting all the bad gases out and all the smoke and the heat. And what it also does is that the fire coming along, now it stops there. Well, when they went to do the trench cut, they put the ladder up. They were just about to step on the roof, and as they went to step, it sagged. So then they said, okay, well, we know it's in the end, it's inside. So what happened was that entire upper area, the attic area, is open. And there's a big vent at the end, which is the size of a double hung window. And that vent pulled the air through, and that helps the fire to rush through. So there's no way they could get up there. So that's when they made the decision, they were going to pull everybody out, and they were going to start an exterior attack or defensive attack, as we call it. And Brownstown was actually quick enough where they were going to do the trench cut on a roof. So we had some help pretty quick. They went to a defensive posture where they started to dump water on it from 2 towers. And DPW, I want to compliment you, because just a little bit of an idea, that's a 6-inch main down here. They ran 2 ladder trucks, 3 engines, and the smallest hose line they ran was 1.5 inches, and the shortest run was 200 feet. Because the building is not on the road. And President and council people there, you saw it, buildings, it's a football field back off the road. So these towers were actually lobbing water the length of a football field on the top of this building. Now the problem that happens with that is when you do that, then the fire hides. If any of you seen Backdraft with De Niro, it's a living, breathing thing. That's kind of overstated, but in reality it is. Because it's in essence, it's surviving. So it'll find little nooks and crannies and crevices, and it'll hide there. And for those who were down there and saw some of this going on, you saw we dumped water, and it wasn't going out at the bottom. There were still little spots where there were hot spots. So they made a decision, they were going to back off the exterior attack, and they were going to re-enter the building. And those of you that were down there with me at that moment, you knew how I was a little apprehensive, because it's kind of a dangerous event, because anything that isn't going to collapse now has thousands of gallons of water on top of it. In fact, there wasn't one bathtub that wasn't full in the entire complex, so they went in the next morning. So they went back inside and started putting those hot spots out, and that's when we were able to get it. Unfortunately, the cause of the fire was determined at approximately 8:30 Saturday morning with some good witness information and then a confession, because an 8-year-old was trying to impress his 3 sisters by lighting Q-tips and throwing them in a garbage can. And one of them successfully landed in the garbage can, started the can on fire, and their reaction was, well, maybe it'll go out. And they ran downstairs, and the smoke detector was going off. And one of the neighbors heard it and came over and knocked on the door and says, everything okay in here? They said, yeah, everything's fine. And he said, well, I gotta go check upstairs. He went up, and the can was still burning. And he ushered the kids out. He went next door and told his wife, called the fire department. He grabbed a bucket of water, and he couldn't go back in. Because by the time he got back to the front door, he was completely unable to enter because of the heat and smoke. So that's when we arrived shortly after that, and that's when that process began. And I have to mention, we had help from a group of people. We had Southgate Fire Department, Brownstown, HealthLink had people stationed there, so that they could help any injuries, and they did. They had a civilian smoke inhalation that wasn't too serious, but it was an older person. And we had 2 firefighter injuries. One surfaced later on in the early morning hours. The first one was a gentleman that was standing 200 feet away from the event, in between 2 other people, including Mr. Hager, and suddenly he was knocked down. It was because of shingle. During them putting out some hot spots, they propelled the shingle 200 feet and happened to hit a guy standing in this open field and caused a gash in his head. And of course,
Do
stitches.
we allow people to just stand around? I didn't think you wanted people
Well,
around.
no, we,
fires.
and I'll explain that a little bit tomorrow, because people
Okay.
sometimes, they have a tendency not to stop and think that each one of those buildings is gas fed. And, I'll be blunt, you never know what people have in their houses.
I don't go to the fire, I didn't think we should be going there and hanging around.
No, I mean, we have a tape,
In
we have a
case
tape
something,
up.
but still, it could.
I encourage you to come.
Do you
Yes, sir.
encourage us to be there?
And, an example was because, several council people came and they offered to go get water or get, they didn't need anybody to contact, and Madam President was there, and she actually took over the conversations that I was having with Red Cross, which was very helpful because I was kind of busy. And, and that helped, she coordinated everything, through the mayor's office, and they had everything set up, and, it went really well, and from what I've been told, the Red Cross was very impressed
Yeah,
with the way things were handled. So-
We only had our one station open, though, right, still?
Correct.
How do we do time, I mean, how much difference time-wise?
It's
You know,
hard to
but
say,
we don't know.
You'd like to think, it was gonna make a big difference, but we don't know if it would make a big difference.
Yeah, no, I just know that you guys
It's all
know, like,
subjective.
every
Now-
each time you have doubles the fire, I mean, you guys have stats, I don't.
Every 30 seconds it doubles exponentially, which that gentleman found out when he went to get a bucket of water.
So
came
even if it
back.
was 2 minutes sooner, it wouldn't double, I mean, but no one was
It would be
really
about-
injured, so
Yeah,
that was
that's the
great.
bottom line, nobody was seriously injured.
That's
What
great.
happens a lot of times with juvenile fire centers, is that they start the fire, they get scared, then they hide.
Right,
They usually go under their bed, we find them in bathtubs, we find them behind doors, we find them in closets. Fortunately, this group went downstairs, and I just picture a bunch of them, don't worry, you'll go out, and then finally, luckily, a neighbor heard that smoke detector. So got them out, quickly enough, for that, so, again, I can't say enough that it's amazing, when you looked at how much water was being thrown at that fire, to think that was coming out of a 6-inch main, it was really pretty incredible, so, my hats off to our infrastructure that survived much better than I thought. One of the other things I wanna mention that, Lieutenant Hopper from the police department, spent the entire night on that scene with Fire Marshal Hager. What happens is that we can't lock that building up, because there were so many hot spots and there was so much still in there, that if it flares back up and we got it boarded up, we have a new hazard. So they leave it open, they usually station people out there. I guess the auxiliary had pretty much spent their time down at the Junior League World Series, and Fire Marshal Hager was gonna sit out there all night. And Lieutenant Hopper said, I'm not leaving you out here alone. So they sat at opposite ends of the building, and they watched it all night, so my hats off to him too, because, the police department is extremely busy, and, to dedicate a person for that amount of time, it took a lot, so. I really appreciate that, and then in the morning, the family came down from that unit, and, the fire marshal had good information. He talked first to the parent, he said, your children like to play with fire? And of course, he said, no, they don't do those sort of things, and he said, okay, I need to interview your children. And I need to interview them separately, so they're all gonna stand over there, you're gonna stand over there, and I'll talk to them one at a time. And he started with the oldest girl first, and he got the story, and then the next youngest girl, and she did the same story, well, the third one changed it. And he said, we'll stop, and we'll back up, and we'll let you start over from this point. And then she told him the same thing the other two did, and then when the young man came up and he stood in front of me, he kind of bowed his head and put his hands in front of him and said, I'm sorry, sir, but I started that fire. And, to keep them out of the juvenile system, U of M has a program. And it's the fire center is scared straight in what it is. And what they do is they show pictures of children that have been severely injured in fires, and they talk to them. And what that does is it keeps them out of the juvenile system. And not just the child that set the fire has to go through it, the entire family has to sit through it. So, now, at that point, early in the morning, the fire department, the fire marshal, and the senior inspector could have said, okay, it's a wrap. And they didn't do that. They sat there all day, and they waited for people to come and pick up whatever possessions they could get for them. And John brought out wedding rings, he brought out purses, he brought out lock boxes, he brought out money, jewelry, pictures, he brought a lot of things out. And then he also was able to tell them that, the facility has locks on doors. When they need more things out of there, TVs, radios, other items that are salvageable, they'll let them in, and they'll have somebody from the restoration company at the apartment complex usually go in with them and get some of those things out that are still usable. So, you know, it's not something where we do an Academy Award speech and thank people, you know. The bottom line is we're disappointed, because we'd like to get a better handle on something, and, you know, fire is, it's difficult, because it's, sometimes you can get a hold